And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, April 19th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about a few teams regarding the NFL draft, whether teams are going to move up, they're going to stay where they are, they could possibly move down. A few teams. We'll talk about the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Chargers, a team that we've talked about recently. So we'll get into that. Then we'll also talk about Josh Allen reacting to the Stephon Diggs trade. I'll talk about what he had to say regarding that. So that'll be the second segment for the show today. Then in the third part of the show, we'll talk about the Giants. Again, another team that I talked about recently. I'll talk about Joe Schoen's recent comments on the draft and what they could potentially end up doing, and his comments on Daniel Jones as well, which I thought some of them were interesting. So we'll get into that. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about a couple things regarding the Eagles, Jalen Hurts and his comments on the new system that's being implemented with the Eagles offense, as well as the replacement for Jason Kelce, Cam Jurgens, and what he had to say about replacing him, because that's going to be the Eagles starting center going into next year. So we'll talk about that as well. So a couple things with the Eagles to end off the show. So with that being said, let's get into the first segment, which is talking about some things regarding the NFL draft, a few teams, and what their plans could be when we get to the draft. So with the Patriots, the first team I want to talk about, so they're supposedly open for business in every round. So they have the willingness to possibly, trade down with their first pick, and also not even just with the first round, but all their other picks as well, which I thought was interesting because right now they have a top 3 pick, and one of their needs is quarterback. So it's possible that maybe, a team, swaps picks with them and they end up moving down. Maybe they don't love the quarterbacks that are available, and they could trade down and get more assets. That's possible, but I don't know. I feel like they might stay at 3. I mean, you might see their other picks being traded around, but it definitely is interesting because there are teams that are lower in the draft that, would definitely, I think, want to snag one of these top quarterbacks. And maybe if the Patriots don't have interest in what's available to them at 3, maybe they trade down. It's possible. But I don't know. I feel like they're going to stay at 3. Because, you got teams like the Broncos that need a quarterback, the Vikings, obviously. So now those teams could end up trading with the Cardinals or the Chargers, which is another team that I wanted to talk about as well. They're looking for the right deal. They're not just going to trade that pick away. Because right now, they got a high pick. They're at the number 5 pick, and I've talked about them recently. They're probably going to want to take a receiver because that's where they're lacking at the moment. Now, they want to get a ton of assets for that pick, and General Manager Joe Hoyts, he talked about, he doesn't want to make a fair trade. He wants to get, a lot of he in a way he kind of wants it to be more lopsided, where the Chargers are going to win that deal because again it's for the number 5 overall pick. This is it's a top 5 pick. You want to that's you're going to get a really good player out of that if you draft the right player, of course. And again, like I said, they're most likely going to take a receiver, whether that's Marvin Harrison Jr., whether that's Malik Neighbors, or if they want to go after Rome Odunze. But it's probably going to be either Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. if they end up taking a receiver. That's what you figure. But I wanted to go into, actually, if I have some quotes here from the general manager of the Chargers specifically. So this is okay. So this is what he said yesterday. There's certainly it's too good of a deal because of what you're getting back. They have to make it attractive for us to move away from those players. The whole it's a fair trade. It's a wash. I don't think that's a trade that we're interested in. If we're going to trade away from great players, there has to be a reason in terms of value for us. Certainly, there are going to be more players in the draft, but it has to make sense to you and it has to make sense to the team that is wanting to come up. So that's what he had to say on that. And he also said, we believe we have the first pick. We have the first pick in the draft. I know there are going to be 4 picks that go before us, but we believe that if 4 quarterbacks go, we believe strongly that we have the first pick in the draft because obviously they got Justin Herbert. That's their future. So they're going to take the best player available. What are teams willing to give us? Obviously, we know it's the 5th pick, and people are going to be trading on that scope. It's got to be good value for us. Does it have to be blown away? What is blown away? I don't know the answer to that. He also talked about how they want to add depth. If you look at it based on need, you're never just one player away ever. I've learned that from my predecessors. He talks about Ozzie Newsome from the Ravens. Also Eric DeCosta as well. And I believe that when you get a chance to add a great player, you add them. That's how we're going to approach it. And, the Chargers are a team that's made a lot of changes in the offseason. And, again, what's lacking right now with this team is the wide receiver core. And you figure with the pick that they have at 5, they're going to draft a receiver, like I keep saying. And the other team, too, is the Commanders. So it seems like, according to Adam Peters, their general manager, so let's get into them, they're going to stay at number 2. They are not moving out of that spot. And that's another team that is going to take a quarterback. And it seems like it could be Jaden Daniels from LSU. And from the mock drafts that I've been looking at, it seems like that's going to be the case, that they're going to end up drafting him. And then that would leave either Drake May or J.J.McCarthy then for the Patriots if they indeed go that route, which I feel like they will. But, again, we'll see. But right now, like I said, locked in at the number 2 spot, Jaden Daniels could be the guy that they end up going with and probably will go with. I think there was another thing I was hearing, too, is I think it was the Commanders. So they brought in, if I heard it right, they brought in 3 quarterbacks at the same time for a visit. I think it was Penix, it was Jaden Daniels. I'm going to see if I could find that right now. I thought that was interesting. At the same time, you're bringing in 3 quarterbacks. Let's see. Yeah. So, this was from a few days ago. So, the Commanders to host 3 top QB prospects at the same time. So, it was Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy. So, this is from a few days ago, according to Sports Illustrated. That is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard a team doing that, just having 3 players of the same position coming in for a visit at the same time. It's a little awkward. Well, but then I heard that it was Michael Penix. I thought Michael Penix was the other quarterback. But that is interesting that the Commanders did that. But it seems like they are going to go with Jaden Daniels. At least according to the mock drafts. So again, then that leaves the Patriots and, maybe a team trades up. Because the mock draft I talked about the other day with Peter Schrager, he has the Giants trading up to draft J.J. McCarthy. And again, he said this is what he's hearing from his sources when I looked at his mock draft, so I don't know if that's going to end up happening. Because J.J. McCarthy, he is really his stock has risen, and what team is going to be the team that ends up taking him? Now, I feel like, at least from what I heard from Joe Shane yesterday, I think the team that you probably see him get drafted by, J.J. McCarthy, is maybe the Vikings. Maybe it's the Vikings, because the Vikings, they already traded up, and they're probably going to want to trade up again and get one of these quarterbacks. And I think the Vikings are another team that likes J.J. McCarthy, so it could end up being them, that they trade up and they get him. But we'll have to see. Because then you also got guys like, because I know from what I was listening to, at least, where I am, is, if the Giants, they wanted to trade down, trade back, and, maybe get or trade up into the, into the later first round, or the later first round, do something like that, or trade down where you can get a playmaker, but also you could draft a quarterback late, like Penix or Bo Nix from Oregon. I mean, I'd be fine with that. But I don't know. It's you hear different things about J.J. McCarthy. So some people are, from most of what I hear, it's not that good. And then you got some people that say, oh yeah, he could be really good. So it's just, you don't really, again, you got to see how these guys actually play when they play in the NFL. Because, yeah, you could evaluate, you could watch film on them and all that, but it's like, it's all in college, and you watch their pro days and you're like, wow, this guy's got a really good arm. But you got to see how that actually translates when you get to the NFL. That's when you can really evaluate what a player is made of. And I've said it, I'm not an expert on all these quarterbacks. I mean, it's right now, Caleb Williams is the number one guy. And then after that, it's, we'll see. I mean, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. J.J. McCarthy is a national championship winner. You got to see how these guys translate to the NFL. And, right now we know that Caleb Williams is going number one. That's all we know. But then after that, it's okay. We'll see. Like I said, Jane Daniels could be going to Washington, and then you got the other quarterbacks, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy. Where are they going to end up? Because teams are going to. It seems like teams are going to trade up. You're going to see picks moving around. Again, I don't think the Giants are going to be that team. I think it might be the Vikings, or maybe the Broncos, or maybe the Broncos stay where they are. I know something that I saw that they really want to nail this first pick that they have, and you got to, because right now, I mean, I think they're going to take a quarterback. You would think you're not going to go into the next year with Jarrett Stidham as your quarterback. You got to draft a long-term answer there, and they probably will, but we'll see. And then also, I mean, you got the Raiders, another team that I think still needs a quarterback. So it's going to be interesting, but the Chargers, where they are, I mean, a team could really, give them a lot to get that number 5 overall pick, but it's got to be something that's appealing to them. If not, then they're going to stay where they are, and they'll probably draft a receiver. Patriots said they're open for business, so maybe they, end up trading out of the 3 and going down. But I don't know. I mean, you got a top 3 pick. You could do a lot with that. I think maybe it's more so just with their other picks. But we'll see. I mean, the Cardinals, too, at 4. They're probably going to take a receiver, but maybe they trade out. They trade out of that and trade down, get more assets. Because, again, there's some teams that are picking lower that need quarterbacks. And I think the Vikings are that team because they already did it. And maybe, like, how the draft unfolds to start, maybe they trade up again. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But let me know what you guys think about these 3 teams, the Commanders staying at 2 and the Chargers and the Patriots, being open to trading their picks. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think those teams are going to end up doing as well. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we're going to talk about Josh Allen reacting to, now we're going to move away from the draft for a bit. We're going to talk about Josh Allen reacting to the Stephon Diggs trade. I'll talk about what he had to say, and that is what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.